Alright guys, this is kind of a spontaneous video. I was sitting here just kind of cruising through YouTube and stuff, and HeroHunter81 has a contest going on, and I think it ends this Friday. And what he wants you to do is just kind of show some undervalued key comics you have in your collection and stuff, right? Well, I could do that all day long with my collection. So what I kind of did here is, and to be honest with you, I was actually getting up to kind of clean the house, as you can see by the pair of jeans here. Just kind of pretend that's not there. Yeah, it's time for Howler to do laundry. But anyway, so I just kind of, as you can see at my shelves, just kind of scanned through them real quick, grabbed a few books. I'm not saying I didn't put a lot of effort in it, man, but this is just something to kind of do on the side. Just see what, I could pop out of these shelves here a little bit. So let's get to it here, right? And I'm going by memory here, man. If I say something wrong, feel free to correct me. I'm just shooting from the hip. So anyway, we got Superman 167. I think that when it comes to value of comics, I quit keeping track back in the 90s. When I was trying to do this by the value of a comic and how much something's worth, and trying to track down key books and hot books and keep up with what was coming out, I was freaking miserable with this hobby. I mean, I was really about out, and then it just became about the comics again, right? No idea if this is worth money or not. Don't know if any of these books are really worth a lot of money. I know what I know the important stuff, what it's worth. So this right here, I have no idea what it's worth. But this is, I think, the first team up of Lex Luthor and Brainiac, and I think this is from 1964. It is, and it's a three-part story all in one book. And what cracks me up about it is when you read it, it just kind of cracks me up because they're both taking cheap shots at at Superman. Okay, there's Brainiac taking a pop at him while Luthor kind of cheers. But you go back here, and there's Luthor taking another pop at him. And you come back down here, and Brainiac's taking another pop at him. It just kind of cracks me up that they're passing him back and forth, punching him. I don't know why. This is so funny. All right. So that's one book, and then this one should be worth a fortune in my idea, because it's just so damn good. I've mentioned this comic book before in my top 10 videos, and it's popped up here and there before. And I think IDW just put out an artist edition to this book where they were able to locate the original comic book art on Bristol board, and then they republished the whole book by those boards. It's the same size, and it's the pencils and stuff. They just reproduced the comic as Joe Kubert did the pencils. And this is Tarzan 207. Okay, and the reason they put the first DC issue of Tarzan is because Gold Key had the book for so long. They put out 206 books, I think. And this is the early 70s. For some reason, it made sense for them. They didn't want to confuse the readers, as I think is what they said, so they just continued the numbering from Gold Key instead of just doing an all-new #1. And I really think that might have hurt the book. Can you imagine if DC had just put out a Tarzan #1 with Joe Kubert in it and just said it was a #1? I think that would have helped. So this is one of those things where I think this is the book when it comes to storytelling and atmosphere, pacing, and mood. I mean, it's the craft. It's the craft of the comic book that is all in here. Okay, the coloring. They changed the coloring on the page of the background in order to give it a kind of a climax to the page and stuff like that. This is one of those things where it's the craft of the book. All right. And if I'm remembering this right, I think it's Jerry Siegel and stuff. This should be worth more because this is the same guy that created Superman, and I know people kind of chuckle at it, but by gosh, when Neil Gaiman put him in Sandman, he wasn't a joke then, man, but it's Prez #1, Prez #1, 18-year-old president right there at the tail end of the age of the hippies. And I want to say it's Frank Robbins or Carmine Infantino. I don't know. 1973. It was a bi-monthly book. Looks like I got a dog ear on the back page. Fix that in a minute. But I was real glad to have this. Joe Simon. It was Joe Simon, So, yep, there he is. Prez in the 70s. So, same guy that created Superman, Joe Simon, co-created Superman, created Prez. Alright, and this one, I don't know if this is his first appearance, but for me, this should be you know, worth a bit more and stuff like that, because like it's Superman versus Captain Strong, who is actually Popeye. That's Action Comics 421. I think that should be worth something with Captain Strong in it. Cracks me up. Here he is in the phone booth. He's probably ate his spinach, and he's got him. Alright, this should be worth a bit more money. Now I've got two issues of Superman, and I think maybe one Superman, one of Action, or maybe two of Superman. And they got Bizarro on the cover, and they both have purple on the cover, so I may have grabbed the wrong one. But Superman 333, this should be worth money, because this is the first time that Bizarro used his ice vision and his flame breath. Okay? You know, the debut of new powers opposite of Superman. Alright? You know, and plus it's a purple cover. You know, anything with a purple cover should be worth money. There's a theory that if you put an 8 on a book, it's going to rise in sales. If you make it a purple cover, it's going to rise in sales. Now this one, with all the revamps that's gone on since like 85, you know, Crisis on Infinite Earth, they revamped DC. They did it with 0 Hour, then they did it again, and they did it with Flashpoint, you know, and all this stuff, and revamping Hero stuff. Here's one where they did it just because it's an anniversary, right? And this thing has Marv Wolfman, Cary Bates, Murphy Anderson, George Perez, and plus Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, man. But they revamped Brainiac and Lex Luthor. This is Action Comics number 544 in its 45th fabulous year. And this is where, you know, George Perez came in and redesigned Brainiac and Lex Luthor. This should have been huge. They took two classic characters and look what they did to them. I mean, just bam, you know. I mean, this is the Lex Luthor and Brainiac that I loved. You know what I'm saying? This is their looks that were in Jack Kirby's Superpowers miniseries and the Superpower toys, and you know, and they finally adapted it to the Super Friends cartoon before they went out. You know, this was it. And it followed up with some great stories. Just awesome stuff, man. I mean, this is the 3-issue story here, man, that ended up culminating with Superman, Justice League, and the Teen Titans. Some great Gil Kane art here. And those issues are 545 and 546. You know, Showdown. I need to read that, make sure it ties into that Brainiac story. But you know, it's been a while. Now this was the third #1 issue of Batman. Okay, Batman debuted in Detective Comics, but it wasn't #1. I think it was like 27 or something. And then they came out with Batman #1, and then Len Wein, I think, and John Byrne did this little miniseries, The Untold Tales of Batman, The Untold Tales of Batman. So you had Batman #1, Untold Tales of Batman, which was the second #1, and this was actually the third #1. They got rid of Brave and the Bold in order to make room for this, but it was Batman the Outsider's #1 where he quits the Justice League. I mean, that should be a key issue right there, man. You know, and it's got one of the, you know, it's one of my favorite covers from this era of DC and stuff. I mean, Jim Aparo doing it, man, but I mean, I don't know. It's got something. It has that intangible where I can't tell you why it's cool. Either you like it or you don't. All right, now this one right here, this could be worth a little bit of money. I don't know. I don't know, but it should be a big key that, you know, I'd like to see in more videos. But this is from 1985, and this is just a All-Star Squadron number 47 with Todd McFarlane art, retelling the story of origin of Dr. Fate. You know, so you know, there's you some early McFarlane, man. You know, and this was around the time he was probably doing like Infinity Incorporated and all that stuff, which we go on back again with another All-Star Squadron book number 25. And this one, I don't understand why this didn't take off. I thought this was the coolest shit that I saw at that time when it came out, man. It has great Jerry Ordway art. It was solid. I mean, it's very 80s. I mean, it's very 80s, man. But what we have here is the debut of the Infinity Incorporated in All-Star Squadron number 25. And then you come to find out that this is the children of the Golden Age DC heroes, man. You got Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor's son. You got Hawkeye and Hawkgirl's son. I think this is the stepkid or something of the Atom. You got Brainwave Jr. You got Hawkman's foster kid from a race of bird people that were actually in the comics during the Golden Age. They popped up. You got oh my God, it's Green Lantern, the Golden Age Green Lantern, and who did he marry? Harlequin maybe? I'm going blank. And then his other son, You know, they end up getting, they were twins, they ended up getting split up Obsidian, you know. So, I mean, you know, the debut of their kids, I mean, you had the Super Sons in the 70s, and people finally remember them. You know, you figured this would be a key book when you get the second generation of Earth 2 heroes, you know. That one really befuddled me. Now, these two books here, I think they should be worth more because they're notorious. They are notorious, right? It's John Byrne. I got a couple of John Byrne in here, I think. But this is Action Comics 592, 593 from 1987. It's Big Barda and Mr. Miracle, but the reason this should be made is that green dude there, Sleege, he more or less manipulates Big Barda and Superman into making a porn. There is a porn tape of Superman floating around. Yes, yes. You got to read between the lines, but it's there. Okay. Now this book, John Byrne did some work on. John Byrne did some work on Fantastic Four in the early '80s. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to skip to the Marvel books here, right? And what he did is that this is in 1982. He took the Gladiator and he kind of expanded and used him as Superman and explained his powers. How can he lift buildings from the bottom up without things crumbling from their own weight and stuff? You know, all that comic book superhero science back then that you just didn't think about, you just accepted it. And that's where he came up with the idea of the telekinetic powers and stuff, right? So for me, before, you know, years before he revamped Superman and did that, he did that with Gladiator in Fantastic Four 249 and 250. Now, if you don't consider that a key book, you know, it also, you know, it's the anniversary issue of Fantastic Four, and it's got the X-Men and Captain America and Spider-Man all showing up, you know. But if you don't really consider that a key book, I want you to look at this cover from 1982 with Gladiator holding up the Fantastic Four. Then I want you to look at this from 5 years later when Byrne actually got on Superman. It's the same cover. Same cover. Glare, glare, glare. Yeah, but take that in. Take that in. They're all in the same poses. You know, everybody's spread out the same. It's the same book, man. Same book. Yep. Okay. Damn glare. Alright, and then this is 466. You know, everything being fair play in 1990, you had a Superman kind of character pop up in Fantastic Four. Well, in Superman, The Adventures of Superman, that Dan Jurgens had a Fantastic Four-like team show up. A bunch of astronauts or something that crash landed and stuff. But what happens is that the guy who is Reed Richards of this group, the way I remembered, this is the guy that ended up becoming Cyborg Superman. Okay? Go figure. Or maybe it was the Ben Grimm of the group. Who knows? I haven't read this thing since 1990. But, you know, it even has the origin issues, the pages. It even has cosmic rays shooting through them, like in Fantastic Four #1. And then a little homage of the wreck there. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious that they're doing Fantastic Four in a Superman book. Maybe it's the guy that was Ben Grimm and ended up becoming him. I don't know. But, you know, the cosmic rays were pretty much killing all of them, changing them, you know. And one of those guys became Cyborg Superman. Alright, moving on here. Why this is not a key book, I don't understand. I know it was for charity and stuff like that. In the 80s, you know, everybody's wanting to feed the world and save Africa and save Ethiopia and feed everybody, and do they know it's Christmas time and everything like that. So we had Heroes Against Hunger. And what we had here was Jim Starlin plotted this, and a plot assist and character designs by Bernie Wrightston, but we also had all kinds of people on this. Neil Adams, Jack Kirby, Dave Gibbons. I mean, there's a whole list of people who all donated a page to do this. George Perez and stuff. And you have a Neil Adams cover, and you have Bill Sienkiewicz, DC pinup. You know, may have been his first at the time. You know, I mean, look at that. That's 1985, and that is just so futuristic even for that time. You know, so out there, it's different. And I'll mention it again. Okay, another one here is DC Showcase number 19. This is Darwin Cook's first comic book stuff. And then we have this whole series that I don't understand isn't worth more. It's Jeff Loeb's first comic book. Okay, Challenges of the Unknown. I don't have them all. I did at one point. I don't know what happened to them. 3, 4. He took the Challengers of the Unknown and he gave them a twist, and they became kind of like Marvel characters. One guy kind of became like a Punisher. One guy started studying magic and became kind of like a Doctor Strange, and he just really messed with them. Yeah, and that was a great Art Adams cover for that one, number 7. And then another thing that happened was Mark Waid coming off the editorial and becoming a writer a whole lot more, and he got a hold of the Flash, and a star was born. Flash 62, 63, 64, and 65, and this is where he kind of embraced the Silver Age style of writing comics, the tone and stuff, right? The tone, the lightheartedness, everything doesn't have to be dark and gritty. This was the book that was the answer to getting away from what Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns ended up doing. All right, so Mark Waid came on and just he wrote where books could have went if the Silver Age had kind of continued. I mean, it's all in continuity, and it just took off on the Flash, and the book became huge, and that's where everybody started loving Wally West. And now everybody's talking about Preacher being number 1. We don't, nobody wants to, miss out on the Preacher because they said there might be a TV show coming or something, right? Well, you might want to grab this, okay? This is Hitman. This is Garth Ennis's walk into the modern DC universe with a hitman who has telepathy and X-ray vision, and he, he gets hired to kill people, and he usually goes after villains and bad people in Gotham City, And in the first issue, he's hired to kill the Joker. He goes after the Joker, and Batman pops into him, and instead of having this great grand fight, he ends up like throwing up on Batman's shoes. It's pretty cool. And I don't care if this was just a fad that went through or didn't last long or anything like that, but or that this was just manipulation to make Tim come back and be Robin. The debut of Stephanie Brown as Robin in 126 should be a key issue. That is a new Robin. Okay, second female one since Carrie Kelly that I can remember. Alright, so where are we at here? Moving on. Now I mentioned Bill Sienkiewicz a minute ago, and now here's a whole run of comics that I think should be worth more money. New Mutants 18 through 31, simply because of his great art. Now if this shows up, and I just realized it's dark, look at that. That is Danielle Moonstar wrapped up in a blanket having bad dreams about the demon bear. And he just merged those two images together. And I could go through this book and just show you his art. It's the kind of a book where you'll just sit there and you'll just try to take it in. I mean, it was so... His stuff gives me that feeling, a weird feeling, like H.R. Geiger and stuff, right? But it's his own thing, and you can just look over and over what he did with this. Not bad for a guy who started out as a Neil Adams clone, This should have been worth more money. I think I had a little conversation on one of my videos about this. X Factor number 1, the return of the original X-Men. They really dropped the ball. They just had the wrong team on it, but it still should be worth some. I think it should be worth more. Excalibur number 1, I think should be worth more. This was fantastic. It was lighthearted. We got Sea Britain, we got Nightcrawler, we got Kitty in there, we got the Phoenix going on, which I never really got on board with having another Phoenix, but you know what I'm saying. But just Captain Britain, Megan. I mean, this ties into Alan Moore's run on Captain Britain he did in the early '80s. There's some things that kind of continued from that. This definitely should be worth money. I pick this up every time I see it, man. But it's Hulk 418, and what it does, it has an unofficial appearance by Death. You just see the back of her. And what happens is, as a wedding gift, one of these characters got stabbed. I think Marlo did, and right before a wedding, and she ends up living. And Rick is like, "Thank you," and he sees this wedding guest getting cake, and she's goth, wears a tank top. You just see her from behind, and he gives her she gives him a gift, and when he opens it up, it's a brush, and he doesn't get it. Well, that's Peter David telling us that they just had a brush with Death. Death from Neil Gaiman's Sandman. That should be worth more money. This should be worth more money. I mean, the second appearance of Deadpool in X-Force number 2. I'm just saying. Look at that, a Rob Liefeld. And these two books here, She, Cyblade, and Cyblade She, the Battle of Independence. It's two different books. One published by Top Cow at Image, and the other one by, Crusader Comics by Bill Tucci and stuff. This thing is chock full. One of these is the first appearance of Witchblade. I just saw a video where somebody said that and never really registered. But the other issue and the other issues, all the independent characters come together, man. Cerebus, the Turtles, Astro City. It's just chock full of freaking I mean, stars after stars after stars taking on the big two, man. It's got Ash and all that stuff. You know, just all these independent characters in there. You know, there's, you know, it goes on and on. Scud the assassin and Milk and Cheese. And the further you go into the book, you know, the more people that pop up. You know, let me find it. Yeah, look at this. All these independent characters, man, taking on the great big huge corporation. You know, it just goes on and on and on. I mean, there's just no way to really tell you who everybody is. Either you know who they are or you don't. And it's got a little guide in the back with their faces about who does what. You know, even Bone pops up. Alright, so as you can hear, my phone is going off. Those are just a few key books. Great contest hero. Hope you know got into